that the fellows from Grassroots Institute are in studio today. Joe Kent, Ted Kefalas. Gentlemen, good morning. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rick. I had a great time celebrating July 4th, watching those fireworks over Waikiki. So.
Yeah.
And you?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, just enjoyed it. Went to Kapiolani Park for the Hawaii 250th. Spent some time there. Just being around locals and tourists and a whole melding of different. It was great.
Well, that's America, right?
Yeah, love it. Loved it. Ted, how about you? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Rick. It was great, just being able to celebrate the 250th anniversary and really seeing some of the patriotic pride that's out there for America. And so it really, along with the World Cup, I think has really kind of uplifted some spirits, and it's everybody's kind of in a good mood, at least for right now.
Well, I think what's awesome is the feedback from World Cuppers when they visit and the replies and responses. And I've seen some reels that have multitude of views and shares of people expressing, "I'm so sorry. We had a whole different opinion of America because of what we're fed. And now that we're here, we can't wait to share what the real story is." Mm-hmm. And it's kind of pervasive in all areas when it comes to either media coverage, social media, et cetera, Joe.
Well, it's when politicians talk to politicians from other countries, that's when countries get annoyed at us. But I think, the more we get together, the happier we'll be.
I think so. The one thing I don't get, ranch dressing. Ted, why is that such a big deal, Holyfield?
Yeah, I was surprised. I could not believe that, ranch dressing. I saw a big tub at TSA. I was flying recently and saw a big tub that was just filled with ranch dressing at the station. So.
Oh, my. I find that hysterical, but it was good stuff. And we have a U.S. plane at 2 p.m. today. 1:30 is pregame on our station, Fox Sports 990. Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, the mission is what, Joe?
Well, we are your think tank for the people that defends individual liberty, economic freedom, and limited accountable government. There's all kinds of interest groups out there that are interested in themselves, a hotel lobby or a construction lobby or a union lobby and all this. Well, who's going to be a lobbyist for regular people to lower the cost of living, to reduce taxation, allow people to try things like open a business and so on? That's the Grassroots Institute. So we're here for the grassroots. This is the individual person, and this is who we kind of represent.
Coming up is a gala, and I want to mention it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Ted, this is going to be a great event. Adam Carolla, he's coming to town, yes?
Yeah, it's going to be on September 4th. We're going to be celebrating our 25th anniversary. Adam Carolla, who's a pretty funny guy, he's going to be headlining the show. It's a pretty interesting story. His house actually burned down in the Palisades fire. So he's got a lot of relatability to, what happened in Lahaina and kind of the struggles that we see with overregulation, just in Hawaii in general. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of get his take on things, but really just celebrating where we've come from. Grassroots started in 2001 by a gentleman named Dick Rowland. And he started us as a one-man band, essentially. Just Dick, writing articles and researching, and now we've grown to about 10 full-time employees, and it's just something that we've really want to celebrate with the public and get to share some of our perspectives and sing and dance and be merry.
So, are you going to be singing and dancing, Ted? Is that we? Oh, and are you going to dress up as Mary, Joe?
Depends on how many drinks are going to be.
Yes, the key ingredient. We have Civil Beat here on the program. Chaz is a regular friend and guest on Thursdays, and the morning updates every Monday through Friday. There is a recent article that Chad published in Civil Beat pertaining to Grassroot. Joe, Ted, your thoughts? Share with us.
Well, Chad walked into our office and turned on his microphone instantly and interviewed us for, I think, an hour. And it was a wide-ranging interview about what are we really trying to do, and it was awesome. We loved the article. Just because it just lays out the facts, just like Ted said, started in 2001, and we're trying to become more influential in the state for the purposes of lowering the cost of living. And, that's basically, in a sense, it was no news because anyone who knows Grassroot knows all this stuff already. But we're glad to have it out there. And the comment section is a fun read, too.
Oh, hide the children.
Yeah.
No doubt.
It was pretty mixed, though. I mean, some people, hey, we hate those guys. Oh, we love those guys. Yeah. Or kind of in the middle. And so it was mixed, and that's what happens when you talk about political issues and ideas. I think what Chad was trying to look at is, is Grassroot trying to get involved in the political system or in trying to get people elected and so on? And actually our answer was no, we're not doing any of that. We're nonpartisan. We're commenting on what is the state of the budget? What is the state of housing policy? Because if any politician were elected, how do they know this stuff? Like this is our full-time job, to read bills and to look at policy issues. We're not out there campaigning or anything. Mm-hmm. And so, how much does a politician understand about that stuff? And wouldn't it be nice if there was an organization that broke it all down for them? So that's what we try to do.
Understand. Dr. Aquina is a member of OHA, and I understand that in the pursuit of that position, he obtained clearance from the State Ethics Committee. Mm-hmm. So although nonpartisan, non-political per se, Dr. Aquina's role has been vetted, and so no worries, beef curries.
Yeah, that's right. When Kali'i was elected as a trustee at large of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, what was that, 2016 or so? We went to the Ethics Commission and said, is there any, conflict of interest here? Or how do we handle this? And they wrote us a letter basically saying that there is no conflict of interest. And so, but in any case, we still try to keep a firewall. I mean, ask me any question about OHA, and you typically don't really know what's going on over there. And Kali'i, by the same token, doesn't lobby or do things like that. So we try to keep a firewall between these organizations.
Ted, it was also included that there was a bit of a ticks next to successes. The Grassroot was behind in efforts of the past legislative session. And chiefly amongst them, of course, we've talked at length about the tax cuts, preservation. Yes, there was in the highest margins. There was an increase in that regard. There was also housing for farm workers. That was a success. And I believe also building permits of helping expedite or at least urge and promote further reformation. What would be other quote-unquote wins that you backed with the legislative session, and you both are noted to be quote-unquote lobbyists, that you interface and you educate and you converse? Ted, walk us through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you laid out some of the big ones. Obviously, the defending the tax cuts was probably the biggest issue this year. We did some housing work as well, expediting permits. So there were a couple bills that we worked on previously. One that would put a shot clock on permits and allow for self-certification, which essentially just means that architects and engineers can sign off on plans if the permitting department takes longer than 60 days. that bill, for whatever reason, the language in that actually was not, it increased the liability for these architects and engineers. And so they weren't able to get insurance. So nobody actually did the self-certification. So there were a couple bills to clean that up this year. But one of the other bills, and it's kind of sounds small, but when you know the story behind it. So there was a woman, her name is Kailani Flores. She's a hair braider on Maui. She wants to practice hair braiding, but the solution is in Hawaii, you can only practice hair braiding if you get a hair braider license or a hairdressing license. On Maui, the only school to do that costs $17,000.
Pardon me?
Yep, just to braid hair. And there's only one school, and she has to, after doing that, she has to pass multiple state certification tests. Again, this is just for hair braiding. So we backed a bill this year that would get rid of that licensure requirement. So now all she has to do is pass some health and safety courses and certifications, which are a lot less intensive. And now someone like Kailani can open up her own shop and can be able to profit on her skills.
Right.
And so, this is a small bill, but we're hoping that this can start chipping away at some of these licensure requirements.
So does that specifically pertain to that particular hair braiding, or is that now with licensure for other disciplines?
So that is just for hair braiders.
Dear heavens.
And so, but, there are so many other licenses that are out there. We require licenses from so many occupations. I think we're probably the number one or number two burden in the country when it comes to that. And so all that means is that people that have skills and want to open up businesses can't do so before getting a letter from the government that says you can do that. And a lot of times they have to pay $17,000, $20,000 more just to be able to operate a business, and we don't think that that's right.
No. Grassroots Institute of Hawaii in studio, 7:23 in the morning, with Joe Kent and Ted Kefalas. And Joe, I mentioned the word lobbyist. Define the term first, and both of your roles in that regard.
Well, let's say that you go down to the city council to oppose a tax hike, and you testify once. Maybe you sit there for 3 hours and you wait for your, whatever it is, 2 minutes that they give you. And okay, that's fine. You're not a lobbyist. You just did it once. But what if you do it more than once? What if you do it 10 times or 12 times? Well, at a certain point, you're considered a lobbyist and you have to register. Now, even at like the Maui County Council, for example, they make every single person register, and they basically consider everyone to be a lobbyist, I think. So it's like, what is really a lobbyist? That term is kind of vilified and denigrated, like, ooh, you're a lobbyist. But a lobbyist is really someone who's trying to tell the government what's what. Mm-hmm. And so there are, lobbyists who advocate for your interests or against your interests and so on. So it's really free speech, actually. And, oh, yeah, go ahead.
No.
Well, and that's why Grassroots is actually going after this case. It's called Act 11. This is a law that was passed at the Hawaii legislature, and it concerns free speech and lobbying. Basically, it says that if you are an organization that tries to lobby on a bill, and now lobbying in this context could also mean telling the public what's what, trying to tell the public, okay, don't vote for this or do vote for this. And sometimes we have ballot initiatives, like the Honolulu Rail, for example. We all remember how that passed with a squeaker by 51% back in 2008. Remember that?
51-49.
Right. And Grassroots Institute was heavily involved in that at the time. And so we told everyone, be careful on voting for this. Look at the numbers closer. This is going to cost billions and billions more than they're saying. Now, under Act 11, that takes an effect in July 1st, 2027. That type of activity would be illegal for an organization like ours. And so really, again, this is about free speech. So Grassroots Institute is mounting a lawsuit with the Institute for Free Speech, basically trying to show that this law is unconstitutional. And I think the facts are on our side.
Thank you for that, because, Ted, if we talk about Act 11, the genesis was 2010 Citizens United Supreme Court decision. And can you help us, remind us, the definition of SCOTUS and the affirmation of Citizens United, and what Act 11, the relevancy, and why was this even advanced? I know Governor Green was a big supporter.
Yeah, so Citizens United, like you said, was a lawsuit in 2010, and it essentially gave organizations the ability to spend money on elections and campaigning and trying to influence our politics. What really Citizens United was about was an organization that created a video telling people about a certain initiative, and they got stopped by the state. So this was something that allowed them to actually spend that money and advertise on that. Act 11 is what the Hawaii state legislature has passed as a response to try to get dark money, quote unquote, out of politics. Unfortunately, it goes so far to silence almost every organization that wants to speak out on this. It's not just the big corporations and the quote unquote dark money. Mm-hmm. It's nonprofits like us. It's unions. It's any trade association. Anyone that is incorporated in the state of Hawaii would be facing potential, ramifications if they were to get involved on a ballot initiative. So that's really the impetus for us getting involved, and we wanted to, for what we do, we've testified on bills at the Honolulu Charter Commission this year, and they're looking at a bill right now to pass an empty homes tax. Well, if that were to get on the ballot, we would not be able to actually say anything about that. We wouldn't be able to try to convince voters to not vote for that. So our voice has been silenced.
Now, of course, on the ballot this year, the law doesn't take effect this year. It takes effect in 2027. Mm-hmm. But the point remains, if any tax hike went on the ballot under this law, it would be illegal, and the consequence is dire. It could be, thousands of dollars in fees, or it could actually be the involuntary dissolving of our organization. So just picture that. This is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. We're supposed to have free speech here. And, the dissolving of your organization for speaking out and trying to warn people about a ballot initiative. That's a good thing, by the way. The ballot initiatives are often written terribly. I mean, have you ever read these things? Sometimes they're hard to even decipher. We get people calling our office like, what does this ballot thing mean, and so, and some of them are worded improperly too, as we saw in 2017, where there was a ballot initiative to add a surcharge to help the keiki or something like that. And so, this went up to the courts, and the court said, this wording is terrible. You can't have that on the ballot. And we were all over this. So, if we were talking about this at that time, and this law were in place, it would be illegal just the same.
I think it's also important to point out, when we talk about trying to stop organizations from getting involved, what that means is that, you and I and Joe collectively could not pool our resources and have a voice in anything. And a lot of times, as average Joes, we don't have the resources to really go out there and run campaigns. I mean, just as an individual, you can't run a Facebook ad campaign or a mailer campaign to people. That gets expensive really fast. You know who can, though, are the people like Elon Musk and Larry Ellison and whatnot. So what this is really doing is silencing the collective voices of regular, average, everyday people. And it's not doing anything to stop, the millionaires and billionaires that they are claiming to getting out of politics.
How can the public help you in your legal efforts?
Well, the best is to follow our work. We're trying to win in the courts, but we're also trying to win in the court of public opinion as well. And that matters, actually, a lot because we don't want to win in the courts and then the public somehow misunderstands what we're doing here. We're trying to actually fight this on behalf of the local canoe clubs and the bicycle league and the League of Women Voters and all the different groups out there that whose voices are important and need to be heard. So yeah, follow us at grassrootinstitute.org.
Here we go. It's already 7:32.
Wow.
Time flying by as always. And lines are open if you want to jump on in with Joe and Ted. We're going to continue with more topicality in just a moment. I want to bring up something. We were talking about lobbyists, if you don't mind. Just a very brief, we talked about definition of term. But when you are approaching lawmakers and or bureaucrats, you have a obvious mission of accomplishment that you have. But how's the interaction? How's the approachability? How's the acceptance? Are there those that are very amenable? Are there those that won't open the front door? How is the experience for you personally?
I would say it's, quite honestly, it's a little bit of both. But I would say more often than not, people here in Hawaii are open. I've, much more so than in D.C., for example. D.C., it's, if you're not a Democrat, you don't get to see Democrats. If you're not a Republican, you don't get to talk to Republicans. Here, it's not like that. People are very open and welcoming. But I think it's also, at Grassroot, we've really tried to be solutions-oriented. I think anybody can point out the problems, right? You just look out the window and you can see all the things that are wrong. But what are you going to do about that? What are the bills to try to make it easier to open a business, put more money in people's pockets, that kind of thing? And so when we talk about like defending the income tax cuts, a lot of lawmakers, their initial reaction is, well, let's just raise taxes. We don't have the money, let's raise taxes. They don't even think about what are the other solutions. And that, in part, is because they only have one full-time staffer. So to go through 3,000 bills in a year,
right?
They have session aides too, but for the most part, it's one full-time staff. And so it gets really difficult. So that's where we come in, and that's where we try to give these folks solutions. And not every solution is adopted, right? But to be able to say, here is what you should change. Here are amendments to the bill. Here is a model bill that you can use to make it easier for people to, like we talked about earlier, open up a hair braiding stand or a shop. So that kind of stuff, I think, has resonated a lot with lawmakers. And we've been able to build some great relationships with people because, again, they see us as solution-oriented, and we're not trying to create problems or just point out the issues here in Hawaii.
So just a brief follow-up. What is the level of awareness, knowledge of particular bills and issues when you approach and engage in a conversation?
Well, the lawmakers typically know about their bills or the bills that they've been signers on, but typically it's spotty. It's almost as good as like the general public. Do they know what's going on and so on? So I think lawmakers, people think that, oh, you want to try to influence them, and how are you going to do it? Well, just giving the right information and being informative is really helpful to them. I mean, imagine if you were a lawmaker and you had to sit and read thousands and thousands of bills, and then here comes along the nerdy Grassroots Institute with a clipboard saying, here's a summary of what's going on. That would be really useful to you. So we find the doors typically open widely for us to come in. So
you have an example of that because you crafted, I believe it was 10 solutions. And there's a dollar figure of how to save the state. That's pretty remarkable. Could you both share about this, please?
Yeah, well, we went through the budget, all 2,000 pages, and there's 2,000 more of the variance reports, and we read this every year. And I think lawmakers, are too busy to read these, except for maybe 5 or 6 of them that have all the knowledge, it seems. But so we walked through it and looked at it from a perspective of, is there a way to reduce spending? Is there a way to limit spending? Because over the past 5 or 10 years, the budget has grown and grown. I remember when it was, $5 billion less than it is today. I think that was six years ago or so. It's very easy. We found it was very easy to find cuts in the budget. The hard part was the politics behind it. Oh, we can't cut that because, this is related to something one voter constituent likes. Oh, wait, this would benefit the car dealers or the electricians or the solar industry or whatever. And so every time you cut, it hurts somebody somewhere. But you also have to remember that at one time that didn't exist, and they didn't hurt before.
I was going to say, I think we need a definition of hurt.
Hurt, right?
That would be great.
Well, there was one of our solutions was actually to eliminate vacant positions that have been vacant for anywhere from 3, 4, 5 years. Now, just think about that, right? That is a position that hasn't been filled for multiple years. And what's happening right now is these government agencies are using the money allocated for those positions as sort of a slush fund to buy whatever they want for the department. And so our point is, if you want that money, it should go through the normal budgeting process. It shouldn't be just kind of funny money right there. But even that bill to eliminate those vacant positions, that bill didn't make it across the finish line, and that's something that you would think is kind of an easy political thing to do, and getting rid of positions that it's not like anybody's going to find themselves on the unemployment line after this. But even then, all the agencies came out and had their crocodile tears, and we couldn't get that bill across the finish line, unfortunately.
It's all about the cash, and once it comes in. And the other part that is tough is that once you have a budget allocation, if you don't spend it all, you're going to possibly lose that number in the future.
I remember I was a public school teacher at one time here in Hawaii, and they kept telling me, spend all your money, and I was like, no, I'm trying to save this for the taxpayer. But of course they wanted me to spend it. If you don't spend it all, then you don't get it next year. So that's right.
Yeah.
We're at 7:47 in the morning already. Goodness gracious. Once again with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Joe, tell us how we can connect. What is the best way?
Well, you can get on our email list at grassrootsinstitute.org, where we break down all of the different happenings that we're talking about. And you've got about 30,000 other people who are on that email list as well every week reading our emails, grassrootsinstitute.org to find that. Or you can find us at Grassroot Hawaii on Instagram.
Once again, it is our time with the Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Log on to civilbeat.org. You'll see a great piece that was authored by Chad Blair, and to gain just more perspective and insight. One of the great things is that we were talking about was tax status as a nonprofit. There is no partisanship. There is no endorsements, etc. But I understand there's a possibility that there'll be a branch coming up that will facilitate more of quote-unquote lobbying and informing. Can you share that?
Well, only so much lobbying that you can do as a nonprofit, and that's around 10% of your activities. So for Grassroots Institute, we're now coming up against that 10%. And so the only way to do more influence work is to start a 501c4. This is a different tax entity as opposed to a 501c3 that we are now. And the C4 just allows you to lobby more. Now, the donors to the C4 don't get a tax break, though. So that's the harder part, because now we would have to try to find donors who don't want a tax break.
Right.
That's hard to find. But if you can find them, then you can actually lobby more. Otherwise, we're just limited to our current capacity.
Yeah, and I'll just add, there are a lot of organizations that have a 501c3 and a 501c4, and they do a lot of their lobbying out of the C4. Mainly so that they don't have to have this ceiling cap on how much that they can spend when it comes to lobbying activities. So really that's what we're looking to do. And Joe hit the nail on the head when he said we're kind of coming up on that cap. And we've been approaching that for the past few years. And now we think the timing is right to start this 501c4 to allow us to do more activities like lobbying and whatnot.
Right.
But we don't want to donate to campaigns. We want to maintain our independence because I think that's what gives us our strength.
Excellent. I do have one quick question, and we have a few minutes remaining. There are great partners that are also doing exhaustive work. I admire Tom Yamachico with White Tax Foundation. He authored a piece that talks about hidden tax, and he cited specifically the barrel tax. However, there are other areas that we may know about taxes, but we don't know about taxes. And I'll take one example, the pyramiding of the GET, that we understand it's a 4.5%, but it's not 4.5%. And the way that it's applied, could you help us understand a little more? Start with Ted and then Joe, if you wouldn't mind helping.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we have just kind of a, like you said, a pyramid of tax structure. And we continue to try to introduce more taxes on top of it. I know this year there was a bill to even add a tax onto concert tickets or public events. And so, we just continue to tack on, and it just continues to eat away at folks' bottom line. And so I think, when you look at some of these things, whether it's income tax, if you try to take a staycation here in Waikiki, let's say, you're going to get hit with a massive bill, even if you get the Kama'aina rate, right? And a lot of that is because of the taxes. And I actually saw recently that we have the highest tourism taxes in the world, not the country, in the world. And that is scary.
Our number one industry.
Yeah.
And we're the highest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, when my wife buys a gallon of milk at the grocery store for, what is it now, $10 a gallon? Well, 4.5% of that, yes, is tax. And my wife says, look, the milk is expensive, but the tax is low. Actually, no, the tax is built into the base price of the milk. Now, how could that be, that the tax also includes some of the pricing? It's because of the intermediary business transactions, the general excise tax, taxes from the distributor to the warehouse to the to the retailer, then to the consumer, and the tax is levied at each step of the way, and that racks up into the price of the product. So that actually, if you look, then there's been studies on this, that 4% is more like 11% or so. Depending on the product and all of the different structures. But it's a hidden tax, just like you were mentioning.
Right. And also, it's not just product, it's services.
Yes, services too. That's right.
And it's astounding at the amount of revenue that is generated. And then with a population of 1.4 million people, our government says, we don't have enough money.
Yeah, that's right.
And those of us who are regular folks are going, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
$15+ billion budget and 1.4 million people?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And if you look at the county level, too, they're taxed heavily as well. And remember, they don't have to pay for schools, too. The schools all come out of the general excise tax and the state funds, really. And so we're definitely taxed. The question we need to ask is, where is the money going? And, of course, whenever you want to reduce taxes, you need to reduce spending. So that's why the Grassroots Institute is here. We're a hawk on that issue. There's so many ways to reduce the size and scope of the state budget. We're paying for all kinds of things that they don't even consider paying for in other states. Like, why would you pay for, this a private parking lot and stuff like this? And so there's so many ways to save money. And if we do, then we can reduce taxes and lower the cost of living. And that's the song of the Grassroots Institute. So.
I would say that you would fortify our economy.
Right.
Recirculation of even more revenue. We're right at the top of the hour. Ted, I'd like final thought with you, then final thought from Joe. About half a minute or so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having us on, Rick. I think, if anything, I want the audience to just take away that it's so important to get involved. And, one of the easiest ways to get involved is going to grassrootsinstitute.org and our website. We understand that people have their lives and their jobs and their families, and so it's not easy to keep up with this stuff. And so that's where we try to come in. And if you go on our website, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on Instagram at Grassroot Hawaii. That's the easiest way to stay up to date on everything that's happening at the city councils, the county councils, or the state legislature.
Excellent. Joe?
Well, I was so pleased to meet Kaiolani Flores the other day, who saw us as rock stars. She was trying to start a braiding outfit to start her business, and our bill helped her now do that. And she took selfie pictures with us at our recent event. And so that's really why I do this. That's why we're in this, is to help people like that. So, grassrootsinstitute.org if you'd like to help us.
Good thing. Go to civilbeat.org. Take a look at the picture of you with Dr. Akina.
Yes.
And it looked to me like you're starting an all-boys band that of local rap. So it looked good. You boys look good. Thanks so much, boys.
Thank you.
Thank you.